quit your UX design career? I've been working as a UX designer for 15 years and I was thinking about quitting UX design at least 2 times. Both times were tied to heavy burnouts I had, when opening Figma really led to nausea. I will share with you in this video what I have considered back then, coupled with modern trends on the job market and my understanding of UX trends in general. My name is Ines, my channel is about UX design, subscribe. First, let's review the reasons why you can consider quitting UX. And the first reason for me personally is the fact that you can't make millions working as a UX designer. Let's face it, it is a creative job that's tied to a craft. And there are limits you can achieve in craft after which the job market will not be paying you significantly more. What I mean by that is that in the beginning you're mastering your craft and you receive proportionate money. At some point you will reach the level that is enough for job market, and the job market will not be paying you more for advancing beyond this level, because most of the work we do is pretty basic, and that will inevitably happen, and unfortunately that will happen sooner than you would wish for. And when you will reach this level, you will have to think creatively about what to do. I had to change cities 2 times and 1 time to change my country to be able to earn more and to increase my standards of living. But anyways, I'm facing this ceiling now, and the next step for me is to turn to people management, for example, because only then I can advance in my career ladder. But that means that I will stop being a designer and will be a people manager. And because we are all coming from different cultures, you might be thinking, why are you starting with money? How about being creative and helping people? I have nothing against it, and if that's your motivation, UX design is definitely a good career because you don't have to think about money then. But for me, I'm coming from a culture where talking about money has no shame whatsoever, and job is a job and every job has to be paid well, being it is a courier, a doctor or a UX designer. And for me, the fact that you will have to deal with this ceiling every 3-5 years is something to consider if you are thinking about quitting or staying in UX design. Now, the point number 2 you need to consider when you are thinking about quitting UX design is the fact that getting a good UX job has never been easy. Yes, the pandemic was an exception, but let's be realistic, that might never happen again. And in times before the pandemic and after the pandemic, getting a good UX design job is a challenge because very few UX designers are needed on a project. And if we look around and assess the products we are using and the products we like, we need to consider that for each of these products, we need maybe 50 to 100 designers, depending on the size of the project, sometimes even less. Because even in the area like Berlin, there will be approximately 100 open design positions per year in a really nice, good companies. And this is just a reality. Companies just don't need a lot of UX designers to do a great job. Yes, I'm confident the situation on the job market will improve in the upcoming years, but you need to consider this. Not all UX design jobs are good jobs, and the number of good jobs will always be limited. The point number 3 I considered when I was thinking if I should stay in UX design or choose something else is the fact that UX design is always changing, and you will always have to learn and upskill. And sometimes it's not easy and tied to a lot of challenges. I started when we didn't even have mobile apps, that's why we were calling ourselves web designers. We just only had one platform we are designing for, so the name was attached to the platform. But then we have to all learn how to deal with mobile devices, and then with wearable devices, and then came new tools like Figma. And this is a constant process. I am also constantly upskilling myself. And the other fact that most jobs, they will not support you in upskilling. You will have to take it on yourself. Yeah, it's not fair, but this is a reality, especially if you want to keep up with the market and eventually get a job that values UX design. And I don't think that will change in a short perspective. The point number 4 is tied to the previous one because working in tech is shaky. Tech has always been and stays a new area, and everything that is new is prone to experiments, and some experiments might go wrong. That's why when you are joining a startup or a big tech company, you have to be mindful that there is no such thing as a job security. And yes, in some countries you can rely on social systems, in some there is less of it, but anyways, working in tech is tied to your own personal risks. And there are two sides of the coins. The salaries we're getting in tech are tied to the risk we take. But of course it is hard. You need to learn how to live with this feeling of constant insecurity. And I don't think this is gonna change in the years to come. The point number 5 is more relevant for those who are just starting in UX design. Maybe you have already noticed UX design is not a career anymore where you can start very quickly. Before and during the pandemic, you could have taken a course for 6 to 9 months and then you would be almost guaranteed to land a job in UX design in 3 months period. Now it's not the case anymore. Even experienced designers sometimes are stuck in looking for a job for a year. So for entry level, it is even hard, and I hope this is a temporary situation on the job market, but I would expect it to continue for at least 2 years now. So you have to prepare yourself. You have to find some interim solutions if you are confident that you want to work as a UX designer. And also the UX quality bar is high and is rising because we have a lot of competition between candidates, and we can always choose the candidate that is performing better on job interviews, that has the best portfolio. And this is how we raise the bar across all the candidates. So in this year that you might have while you are looking for a job after your bootcamp, you should not be sitting idle. This will lead you to nowhere. You have to constantly upskilling. And yes, this is tied to the point that upskilling in UX design is constantly required. The point number 6 I was considering myself when I was thinking about quitting UX design is that UX design is often not valued by organizations. And that's because UX design is relatively new, and for some company founders, it is still not tied to their company's success. I think this situation is improving. It was actually way more crucial before the pandemic. Now I see that many companies started valuing UX design, but also because digital landscape has become way more competitive. And this will definitely stay this way and even increase. And that means for us UX designers that companies will start to compete based on user experience. And I believe this will improve, but changes take time, and now we are often suffering from being undervalued and being underappreciated. The last point you need to consider if you are deciding to stay or leave UX design field is the fact that I mentioned before. You have to upskill on your own time expense. And yes, some companies, they allow you for some educational budget, but honestly, most of the time it's not enough. And we, as UX designers, have a very specific overhead in front of us, our UX portfolio. And updating this portfolio takes time that we can only crave out of our free time. And this is realistically a big challenge. And I don't see how that will change. If you will decide that you want to switch your jobs, you will have to plan for some additional overtime to prepare your portfolio for that. But the trend with educational budgets will become even worse, because companies are constantly cutting on educational budgets. It's not only because of the crisis, no. It's also because an average employee is working for a company for 3 years. So it's not clear for companies why they should invest in upskilling an employee when they will likely to leave. And it is a bigger trend. It is not only tied to UX design field, but for us it's even more crucial because we already have an overhead with our portfolios. By the way, if you like this video so far, give me thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. That's important for me and for YouTube algorithms. And we're moving on. Now let's talk why you can consider staying. Because it's important to weigh pros and cons. There are no job that is ideal. There are no career that is easy. And eventually you can decide to stay, you can decide to leave, but it has to be a conscious decision. So why can you stay in UX design? The first reason for me that UX design is fun and creative. Since my school times, I was afraid of routine office job, the type of job that is portrayed in the Office TV series. I wanted to avoid it at any cost. And UX design has provided me this getaway. I personally like that there are very few challenges in UX design that are the same, because you can change products and areas and industries and work on different things. You are always dealing with something new. And also the tools that we have, they are really fun and interesting to work with. Take Figma, for example, and compare it to the Excel sheets. I would definitely prefer working in Figma, and also creating visual designs is way more interactive and interesting for me than working on Google Sheets. I'm not saying that Google Sheets are not important. Actually, the more senior you become in UX design, the more you deal with them, but it's just way more fun. I'm enjoying the process and the craft of my work. Now, although I mentioned the point earlier that it's harder to start in UX design right now than it used to be, it is still a relatively easy profession to start. If you compare it with most careers, especially with classical ones like lawyers and doctors, then you can definitely see this. At the same time, you can reach the salary that lawyers and doctors receive way faster in UX design. Yes, on average, in long terms, lawyers and doctors will outbeat you because their ceiling is way higher than ours. But if you don't have a privilege to spend 6-10 years in education, if we talk about being a doctor, for example, then UX design career is actually a great starting point. For me, that was really important, that you don't need a long and expensive higher education, because my family could not afford that. And also you don't need to take a student loan to start in UX design that can really be a burden for you for many years to come in your career. The point number 3 that can outweigh your decision to stay in UX design is the fact that you can work from any country. I appreciate that English is a professional language in tech. That means that I can switch countries, and I know that my skills will be in demand. That is unlike lawyers, for example, who learn the laws of a specific country and then they have to stay and work for this country because their skills are not relevant in other countries. The point number 4 is the fact that I can even work remotely. Yes, the remote jobs, they are harder to find, but they exist. And if you think about that, for most professions, it's not even an option. If you take doctors, for example, you have to work with your patients, you have to be on site. And I don't know about you, but I see the world is being really unstable right now. So I appreciate the fact that I can work remotely and I can change my country and location at any time. The point number 5 why you can consider staying in UX design is the fact that you can clearly see the results of your work. And this is what I really enjoy. I see that my designs are being rolled out and real users are using them and give me feedback. And this is amazing. Of course, I'm not curing cancer, but I am still changing some people's lives. And that comes to me in the contrast of many jobs, especially the governmental jobs, where your job is just the process and the bureaucracy. This is like my nightmare. And speaking about cancer, the point number 6 why you can decide to stay in UX design is the fact that by a mistake in your work, you will not cause anyone's death, most likely. There are very small number of projects and interfaces where that could happen, but in most cases we are working on consumer products. And by our end, people will be suffering because of our mistakes. I'm not saying you should make them, but at least that will not cause any fatality. For me, that reduces the stress I experience in my day-to-day work and encourages me to experimenting. And I like that you can always test your solution before rolling it out. And this cycle is really fast. This is what differs working as a UX designer versus working as a classical product designer where you are developing physical products. And for me accelerates the learning speed and my career growth. The point number 7 why you can consider UX being a worthwhile career is the fact that you can change industries. I personally really like that because when I was choosing my career, I did not know where I wanted to work. I could not say if I wanted to work in retail, in education. I started when I was 18. Honestly, I knew nothing about how the world was functioning and who I am actually. And thanks to UX design, I could change multiple industries. I worked in agencies, in startup, as a freelancer, in tech companies, in retail, in education, everywhere. And this is an ongoing process and I really appreciate it even now, although I have a better understanding of how the world is functioning and what are my interests. The fact that I can still switch industry at any time gives me the feeling that I am not in a cage and I'm not so dependent of an economical decline of a certain industry. And the point number 8 why you can decide to stay in UX design eventually is the fact that you are dealing with the cutting edge technologies every day. I don't know how about you, but for me that has always been my motivation. I really like to be on top of things, I really like to understand and see the trends, and the major current trend in the current economy and the world we are living in is the digital technology and automation. And UX designers are really at the frontier of these efforts, because the essence of our jobs is to match technologies to consumers through the interfaces. And as soon as there are consumers and there are technologies, our job is secure. And yes, at some point we might start developing our interfaces for artificial reality and Vision Pro glasses, but it is only the medium. The essence of the job will stay the same because there are technologies and there are people. And we as UX designers, we are right in the middle. And for me, staying close to the technology is way more important than having a secure job. Because if I'm being completely honest, I don't think any job is secure. Even if you take governmental and bureaucratical jobs, there could be changes in automation that will reduce the headcount, and you will have to anyway reinvent yourself. And when you are working closely with the best technologies, it's easier for you to adopt them, it's easier for you to be on trend. And you can see better what is coming and upskill yourself timely. I expect the world will be in constant flux from now on, and that's why staying close at the technology is something that I think of as strategic importance for my career and well-being. So those were the things that I considered myself when I was thinking about quitting UX design, and you can consider for yourself if you want to be a UX designer despite of the current challenges or ongoing trends. I really tried in this video to collect all of the reasons that are not only tied to UX job market right now, because this is honestly the most common current complaint. But in my opinion, there are more going on, and there are more permanent problems in UX design and ongoing trends. As you can see, eventually for myself, I have decided to stay in UX design and to continue in my career despite all the challenges and the burnouts. But it does not mean that you will have to stay in UX design as well. You can choose to do whatever you want. And that also does not mean that I will stay in UX design myself in the future, because we don't know what the future will bear. I'm also changing as I develop and grow, and maybe at some point the disadvantages of this profession will outweigh the advantages for me. I don't know that. This is only the reality for me now that I'm staying in the UX design career, and currently I don't regret that. I think it's really healthy to evaluate your career from time to time and to assess if that still brings you joy. My recommendation is to be realistic. There are no career that is perfect and easy. There are always will be challenges, and a successful career is something that you pick and that you need to stay in for few years to see the fruits from your efforts. So if you will decide on quitting UX design only based on the challenging job market, you will soon find out probably that those are the challenges for everyone or almost everyone, because we are not unique in this crisis, and not only the tech industry is suffering from uncertainty. So for me, it was really important to give you a bigger picture and to enable you for this decision. And I'm sure that even if you decide to quit UX design eventually, you will find something where you find motivation and satisfaction. But don't expect there will be no challenges. And if you will decide to stay in UX design, welcome to my channel, subscribe to the videos so not to miss them, and let me know what my next video should be about. Because that was it for today. I hope that was helpful, and I see you in the next video.